The 5 remaining participants gathered at the entrance to the final trial. Han Sol looked at them. 2 Vryn warriors, including young Keth, 1 Selkarian, 1 Krelian, and himself. They had survived 20 hours of hell. 4 hours remained. Thexar stood before them. The War Master looked almost respectful now. Something had changed in the way he viewed these survivors, especially the human. This final trial is called the Composite Nightmare, Thexar announced. It combines all previous challenges in 30-minute rotations. Heat, cold, pressure, isolation, toxins. The environment will change before your body can adapt. This is designed to prevent equilibrium, to prevent your mind from finding stability. Most years, no one completes this trial. I do not expect this year to be different. Han Sol listened carefully. Rotating environments. No time to adjust. This would test not just endurance but rapid adaptation, the ability to switch strategies constantly. The trial begins now, Thexar said. May your gods preserve you. The doors opened. The first 30 minutes was extreme heat. Han Sol immediately wet his clothing with provided water, using evaporative cooling. His body recognized this challenge. He had done this before. 30 minutes was manageable, but just as his body started to adjust to the heat, everything changed. The temperature plunged. Ice formed on the walls. His wet clothing, perfect for heat, was now dangerous in the cold. He stripped off the wet outer layer and used thermal blankets from the supply station. His body was confused. Sweat glands were still active from the heat. Now he needed to conserve warmth. The rapid change was disorienting. Around him, 1 participant fell. The Selkarian could not handle the rapid temperature shift. Their emergency beacon activated. 4 remained. The environment changed again. Water flooded the chamber. Pressure increased rapidly. They were diving again. Han Sol's mammalian dive reflex kicked in. His heart rate slowed, but his body was tired. This was harder now. He worked on the underwater puzzles, his cold hands clumsy. Time seemed to stretch. Was it 30 minutes or 30 seconds? He could not tell. The water drained. Now came isolation, darkness and silence. But this time Han Sol was already exhausted. The darkness felt heavier, more oppressive. He started talking to himself immediately, not waiting for the panic to build. Tell me a story, Han Sol, he said to himself in the dark. Tell me about Earth, about home. He described the oceans, the mountains, the cities. He filled the void with words until the environment changed again. Toxins next. Caustic air. Nausea returned immediately. His liver was already stressed from earlier. This was harder. But he kept moving. 1 foot forward. That was all he needed to do. Hours blended together. Heat, cold, pressure, isolation, toxins. Over and over. Each cycle was harder than the last. His body could not recover between changes. His mind could not find stability. At hour 22, the Krelian withdrew. Their multiple organ systems could not handle the constant changes. 3 remained. At hour 23, one of the Vryn warriors collapsed during the heat cycle. Their crystalline body had taken too much thermal stress. Cracks appeared in their exoskeleton. Medical drones extracted them. 2 remained, Han Sol and Keth, the human and the young Vryn warrior. They looked at each other during a brief moment between environment changes. Both were exhausted. Both were hurt. But both were still going. The final hour began. Something went wrong. During the toxin cycle, the system malfunctioned. The toxin levels spiked far above safe parameters. Alarms began blaring. Han Sol felt it immediately. His body was being poisoned much faster than his liver could process. Keth collapsed. The young warrior's emergency beacon activated automatically. But it malfunctioned. The beacon signal was weak. Medical drones did not respond fast enough. Han Sol saw Keth falling. He saw the warrior's face twisted in pain. He had a choice. Continue to the exit, which was close. Save himself. Complete the trial. Or go back for Keth. There was no real choice. Not for a human. Han Sol turned around. He moved through the toxic gas back to where Keth had fallen. His own body was failing. His vision was tunneling. His muscles were weak. But he reached the Vryn warrior. Keth was heavy, much heavier than Han Sol. But adrenaline and desperation gave him strength. He dragged the warrior toward the safe zone. Every step was agony. The toxins were overwhelming his system. His body was shutting down, 10 meters to safety. 5 meters. 2 meters. From the control room, Thexar made a decision. He ordered an emergency shutdown of the trial. For the first time in the history of the Crucible, the test was stopped before completion. Medical teams rushed in. They extracted both Hansol and Keth. Both were alive. Barely, but alive. Hansol woke up in the medical bay. His body was connected to various machines. Everything hurt, everything, but he was breathing. He was alive. Jiwoo sat beside his bed. When she saw his eyes open, she smiled. Tears ran down her face. "You idiot," she said lovingly. "You almost died. Did Keth survive?" Hansol asked. His voice was rough. "Yes, because of you. You saved him." "Did I complete the trial?" Jiwoo shook her head. "No. The trial was stopped at 23 hours and 47 minutes. You were 13 minutes short." Hansol closed his eyes. He had failed. He had not completed the Crucible. Humanity would be seen as weak after all. But then Thexar entered the room. The War Master looked at Hansol for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quiet, almost gentle. "You did not complete the trial," Thexar said. "This is true. But you completed something more important. You showed me that I designed the wrong test. What do you mean?" Hansol asked. "I designed a test that measures individual endurance, individual strength, individual will. But you showed me that true strength is not individual. True endurance is not about outlasting others. It is about ensuring others survive alongside you." Thexar paused. He seemed to be struggling with something, an idea that was new and difficult for him. "The biometric data shows that at the moment of extraction you still had capacity to finish," he continued. "Your body was damaged but not broken. Given another 30 minutes under normal parameters, you would have completed the Crucible. You chose to sacrifice completion to save Keth. That choice demonstrates strength of character that no trial can measure." The War Master straightened. "I am recommending to the Galactic Coalition that your species be recognized for exceptional endurance capacity, not because you finished, but because of why you did not finish." Thexar turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing, human Hansol. The trial lasted 24 hours. You did not complete it. Would you be interested in a second round?" Hansol looked at Jiwoo, then at Thexar. Then he smiled. A tired, painful, but genuine smile. "Ask me again after I sleep for a week," he said. "But probably yes. Humans are stubborn like that." Thexar's crystalline face did something that might have been a smile. "Yes," he said. "I am beginning to understand that about your species." In the days that followed, news of the Crucible spread throughout the Galactic Coalition. Humans did not complete the trial, but they had done something no other species had done. They had showed that compassion and cooperation were strengths, not weaknesses. Keth visited Hansol during his recovery. The young Vryn warrior looked different somehow. Humbled, maybe. Or perhaps just changed. "My people teach that individual strength is everything," Keth said. "That we must triumph alone or not at all. But you taught me something different. You taught me that helping others does not make you weak. It makes you human." "I am human," Hansol said with a slight smile. "Yes. And perhaps the rest of us should learn to be a little more human as well." Ambassador Vexus came with news. The Coalition was establishing a new program, the Endurance Initiative. It would teach Coalition species the principles of human survival: adaptability, cooperation, persistence. Hansol and Jiwoo were asked to lead it. The galaxy had thought humans were weak, but the Crucible had shown them something different. Humans were not strong in traditional ways. They had no armor, no claws, no natural weapons, but they had something better. They had the ability to keep going, to adapt, to help each other, to refuse to quit even when quitting made sense. 6 months later, Hansol stood at the entrance to the Crucible again. This time he was not alone. 50 humans had volunteered. Alongside them stood beings from a dozen other species, all wanting to try the human way. Thexar stood before them. The War Master had redesigned the trial. It was still difficult, still dangerous, still a true test of endurance. But now it included challenges that required cooperation, teamwork, mutual support. "The Crucible begins," Thexar announced. "And this time the goal is not individual completion. The goal is that you all finish together. Show me that you have learned what it means to endure as humans endure." The doors opened. Hansol stepped forward with his team, and this time when he crossed the finish line 24 hours later, he crossed it with others beside him. Not in front, Not behind. Together. That, he thought, was what endurance really meant. Not outlasting others, but making sure everyone lasted. That was the human way. And now it was becoming the galactic way, too. The darkness was absolute. Hansel could not see his hand in front of his face. The silence was so complete that he could hear his own heartbeat, his own breathing, the small sounds his body made that he had never noticed before. This was the sensory void. No light. No sound from outside. No touch except the floor beneath him. No smell, no taste except his own mouth. Just him and his thoughts for 4 hours. A neural interface connected to his brain. Every 30 minutes it would present puzzles and memory tasks. He needed to complete them to prove his mind was still functioning. But between tasks there was nothing. Just the void. The first few minutes were strange. Hansel tried to see in the darkness. His eyes kept searching for light that did not exist. His ears kept listening for sounds that were not there. His brain kept insisting that something must be present, but nothing was. Then the panic started to creep in. His ancestors had been social creatures who feared the dark. Isolation meant danger. Darkness meant death. Every instinct screamed that something was wrong. But Hansel had expected this. He had trained for it. He began to talk to himself, out loud in the darkness. "Okay, Hansel," he said. "You are in an empty room. You are safe. You are just alone for a while. That is okay. People can be alone." His voice sounded strange in the void. But it was something. It was human contact, even if it was just his own voice. He began to sing. Old songs from Earth. Songs his mother had taught him. Songs from his military training. Songs he had heard in cafes and bars. The sound filled the darkness. It made the void feel smaller, more manageable. When the first puzzle appeared in his neural interface, he was almost grateful. The puzzle was complex. A mathematical problem combined with a pattern recognition test. Hansel worked through it methodically. His mind felt sharp despite the isolation. Puzzle completed. 3.5 hours remaining. Hansel continued talking to himself. He told himself stories. He described his favorite places on Earth. He worked through memories, examining them like precious objects. His first day at the academy. His first space mission. Meeting Jiwoo. Each memory was something to hold on to in the nothing. Time became strange. Without external reference, seconds and minutes blurred together. Was he on his second hour? His third? The neural interface did not tell him. It only presented puzzles when it was time. Second puzzle appeared. This one tested spatial reasoning and memory. Hansel imagined building a structure in his mind, piece by piece. It was like playing with blocks in the dark. He could not see them, but he could imagine them. Humans were good at imagination. Puzzle completed. 2 hours remaining. This was when it got harder. The isolation began to press down like a physical weight. Hansel started to feel disconnected from his body. Was he sitting or standing? Was he moving or still? The void made everything uncertain. He thought about Jiwoo monitoring from outside. She would see his neural patterns. She would know if he was okay. That thought helped. He was not truly alone. Someone was watching over him. He thought about Keth, the young Vryn warrior. Keth's people were hive-minded, social creatures. For them, isolation was a nightmare. Keth had probably withdrawn from this trial already. The Vryn were strong, but they were not built for loneliness. Third puzzle. This one was harder. It required him to remember a sequence of numbers while solving a logic problem while tracking a visual pattern, all in his head in the dark. Hansel worked slowly. His mind was tired but still functioning. Puzzle completed. 1 hour remaining. The final hour was the longest. Hansel's brain began to play tricks on him. He saw lights that were not there. He heard voices. He felt touches on his skin. Hallucinations from sensory deprivation. He knew they were not real, but they felt real. He focused on breathing. In and out. This was real. His breath was real. He was real. The void could not take that away. Final puzzle appeared. It was the most complex yet. A multi-stage problem that tested everything. Memory, logic, creativity, focus. Hansel gave it everything he had left. His tired brain worked through each stage. He made mistakes. He corrected them. He kept going. Puzzle completed. Time remaining, 0. The door opened. Light flooded in. Hansel squeezed his eyes shut against the brightness. Slowly he opened them. Colors seemed impossibly vivid after the darkness. Sounds were almost painfully loud. Jiwoo was there immediately. She was checking his vitals, scanning his brain patterns. "Are you okay?" she asked. Hansol nodded slowly. "I am okay," he said. His voice was rough. "I talked to myself for 4 hours. Does that make me crazy?" Jiwoo smiled. "It makes you smart. The participants who stayed silent did worse. Your brain needed stimulation. You gave it that. 7 participants remained. Hansol had outlasted more than 40 beings, most of whom were physically superior to him. He felt proud of that, but also exhausted. 3 trials down, 3 trials to go. Thexar approached. The War Master looked at Hansol with undisguised interest now. "Your neural patterns remained remarkably stable," he said. "Most beings show severe stress responses in isolation. You showed creativity instead. You filled the void with your own mind." "Humans are storytellers," Hansol said simply. "We make meaning from nothing. It is what we do." "I am beginning to understand," Thexar said quietly. "Your species may be weak in body, but you are strong in ways we never considered important." The next trial was the Toxin Marsh, a swamp filled with caustic gases and poisonous plants. The air itself would be harmful. They would need to navigate 20 kilometers while their bodies fought constant low-level poisoning. Hansol suited up with the basic protective gear provided. It would help, but it would not eliminate the danger. Some toxins would get through. His body would need to process them. As they entered the marsh, the smell hit him first. Rotten chemicals and something acidic. The ground was unstable, mud sucking at his boots. Strange plants grew everywhere, some glowing with bioluminescence. 2 participants withdrew almost immediately. Their species had no tolerance for toxins. Their bodies could not process poison effectively. Hansol began walking. His stomach felt queasy within minutes. Nausea from the toxic air. But nausea was just discomfort. Discomfort was not death. He noticed something others did not seem to realize. The human liver was exceptional. His ancestors had eaten fermented foods, mild poisons, all kinds of questionable things. They had developed powerful detoxification systems. Hansol's liver was working overtime, but it was working. An hour into the marsh, he felt dizzy. His muscles ached. His head pounded. These were symptoms of poisoning, but they were mild symptoms, manageable symptoms. He kept walking. Jiwoo's voice in his ear was worried. "Your toxin levels are elevated but within acceptable range. Your liver enzymes show heavy activity. How do you feel?" "Like I drank bad alcohol," Hansol said. "But I can keep going." Around him, other participants were struggling more. The Selkarians were suffering badly. The Vryn were pushing through with determination, but their systems were not efficient at processing toxins. At hour 2, something changed. While others were slowing down, Hansol found a strange second wind. His body had adapted to the constant low-level poison. He was still sick, but he was functional. This was another human trick. Humans were persistence hunters. They did not sprint and stop. They kept going at a steady pace. They did not quit when they got tired. They kept moving until the prey collapsed. Hansol was not hunting prey now, but the principle was the same. Keep moving. Do not stop. Outlast everything else. He passed a Vryn warrior who had collapsed. Medical drones were already extracting them. He passed a Krelian who was vomiting from toxin exposure. Only 5 remained in the trial now. At hour 3, Hansol realized something. He was going to finish. His body hurt. His stomach was upset. His head throbbed. But he was going to finish. The final kilometer was the hardest. The toxins were thickest there. The caustic gas burned his throat even through the mask. But he could see the exit platform in the distance. 1 step. Then another. Then another. This was all life ever was. 1 step at a time, moving forward, refusing to quit. Hansol crossed the finish line at hour 3 and 47 minutes. He was third to complete. Behind him, only 2 others finished. 3 participants made it through the toxin marsh, 3 out of the original 54. He collapsed at the decontamination station. Medical staff cleaned the toxins from his body and gave him treatment for the exposure. Jiwoo was there monitoring everything. "You should not be able to do this," she said. But there was wonder in her voice, not criticism. "But I am," Hansol said. He managed a weak smile. "I am still here. 1 trial remained. The final 4 hours. The composite nightmare. and Han Sol intended to see it through to the end. The water was so cold it felt like knives. Han Sol descended into darkness so complete that he could not see his own hands. The pressure suit creaked and groaned around him. Numbers on his heads-up display showed the depth. 500 meters, 1,000 meters, 2,000 meters. At 3,000 meters, the descent stopped. They had reached the bottom of the simulation. Han Sol could hear his own breathing inside the helmet, slow and steady. His heart had automatically slowed down, just like Jiwoo had said it would. The mammalian dive reflex was working. A light appeared in the darkness. Then another. These were the puzzle stations. Each participant had to solve 3 mechanical puzzles to unlock their exit chamber. The puzzles required fine motor control and problem-solving while managing limited oxygen reserves. Han Sol swam to the nearest puzzle station. His fingers were clumsy in the thick gloves. The puzzle was a complex series of interlocking gears and switches. He had to arrange them in the correct sequence. Around him, he heard sounds through the water. Some participants were panicking. Their breathing was too fast. They were burning through oxygen. One by one, emergency beacons began to flash as beings gave up or passed out. Han Sol forced himself to calm down. Panic uses oxygen. Fear uses oxygen. He needed to think clearly. He studied the puzzle. It was like a 3-dimensional chess game. Move this piece, it affects that piece. He began to work methodically. 30 minutes later, he solved the first puzzle. A green light flashed. 1 down, 2 to go. The second puzzle was different. It required strength and coordination. Han Sol had to manipulate heavy levers while maintaining his position against the current. This was harder. His muscles burned with the effort. But he had learned a long time ago that pain was temporary. Quitting was permanent. In his ear, Jiwoo's voice came through. Your oxygen is at 60%. You are doing well. Maintain your current pace, understood, he replied. Something caught his attention. A red beacon flashing in the distance. Someone was in trouble. Han Sol paused. He should ignore it. He should focus on his own trial. But the beacon was getting weaker. Whoever it was, they were losing consciousness. Han Sol made a decision. He swam toward the beacon. Through the murky water, he saw a Krelian participant. Their body was caught in the mechanism of a puzzle. They had panicked, made a mistake, and now they were trapped. Their emergency beacon was malfunctioning. The signal was not reaching the surface properly. Han Sol reached them and assessed the situation. The Krelian's leg was wedged between 2 heavy pieces of machinery. They needed help to get free, but if Han Sol helped, he would use precious oxygen and time. He did not hesitate. He shared his rebreather with the Krelian, giving them air. Then he worked to free their trapped leg. The machinery was heavy. His muscles screamed. The pressure fought against every movement. But slowly, carefully, he managed to shift the mechanism. The Krelian came free. They activated their working backup beacon, and medical drones came to extract them. Before they left, the Krelian touched Han Sol's helmet in what might have been gratitude. Han Sol checked his oxygen. 40%. He had used more than he should have. He would need to work fast now. He returned to his puzzle stations. He solved the second one with 10 minutes left on his oxygen reserve. The third puzzle appeared. It was the most complex yet. A maze of pipes and valves that needed to be connected in the right order. His oxygen alarm began to sound. 20%, 15%, 10%. Han Sol's hands moved faster. But not recklessly. Speed with precision. This was what his training had taught him. This was what being human meant. Not giving up even when the numbers said you should. 5% oxygen left. The final valve clicked into place. The green light flashed. The exit chamber unlocked. Han Sol swam inside just as his oxygen hit 3%. The chamber drained. He collapsed on the floor, gasping. His heart was pounding now. The dive reflex releasing as he reached air again. He had made it. Barely, but he had made it. He was the last to finish this trial. Only 16 participants remained total. But he had finished. And he had saved someone along the way. Jiwoo was there when he emerged. She looked angry and relieved at the same time. You almost ran out of oxygen, she said. You should not have helped the Krelian. You could have died, but I did not die, Han Sol said. And neither did they. Thexar approached them. The Vryn War Master looked at Han Sol with something new in his expression. Confusion, maybe, or perhaps respect, though he would never admit it. You continue to surprise me, human, Thexar said. You are physically the weakest participant remaining, yet you endure. Why? Han Sol thought about the question. He was tired. His body hurt everywhere, but his mind was clear. Because humans do not survive by being the strongest, he said. We survive by being stubborn. We survive by helping each other. We survive by refusing to quit even when quitting makes sense. Thexar was silent for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. Rest, human. You have 15 minutes. The next trial is ice. The glacial expanse was exactly what it sounded like. A frozen wasteland where temperature dropped to -45 degrees Celsius. Winds howled across endless white plains. The participants would need to build shelter, make fire, and survive a programmed blizzard. Han Sol had trained in cold weather survival. But this was extreme. This was the kind of cold that killed quickly if you made mistakes. As they entered the frozen environment, several participants immediately began to struggle. The Vryn warriors, so strong in heat, moved slowly in the cold. Their crystalline biology did not handle low temperatures well. The Selkarians, adapted for water, were suffering badly. Han Sol observed the environment first. Do not rush. Understand your situation. This was basic survival thinking. He found a snowbank and began to dig. Not a cave exactly. More like a snow shelter. An igloo built quickly. Other participants watched him work. Some tried to copy his technique. Others tried to fight the cold with movement, burning energy they would need later. Han Sol gathered materials from the designated supply area. Sticks, dried moss, stones for making sparks. He arranged them carefully. Then he used the bow drill method to start a fire. It was an ancient human technique. It looked primitive, but it worked. Fire flickered to life. Heat began to spread. Han Sol built his snow shelter around the fire, creating a small warm space. It was not comfortable, but it was survivable. A shadow appeared in the swirling snow. A Vryn warrior, young and struggling. His name was Keth. Han Sol had seen him during the earlier trials. The warrior was strong but clearly unprepared for the cold. Human, Keth said. His voice was weak. I cannot feel my limbs. My people are not made for this cold. Han Sol made a decision. Come inside, he said. Share my shelter. I am your competitor, Keth said. Why would you help me? Because out here we are both just beings trying not to freeze to death, Han Sol replied. Competition does not mean we have to let each other die. Keth entered the shelter. Han Sol showed him how to warm his body safely, how to layer snow for insulation, how to use the fire without wasting fuel. The young Vryn warrior listened and learned. The blizzard came at hour 2. Wind screamed across the ice. Temperature dropped further. Visibility went to 0. Several more participants activated their emergency beacons, unable to endure. Inside his shelter, Han Sol waited out the storm. Keth sat across from him, warming his crystalline hands by the fire. Your species fascinates me, Keth said. You have no natural defenses, no armor, no enhanced strength. How did you survive on your world? By being clever, Han Sol said. By working together. By learning from our mistakes and not making them twice. The Vryn do not think this way, Keth admitted. We value individual strength, individual glory. But here I am, alive because you shared your knowledge. Maybe both approaches have value, Han Sol suggested. The blizzard lasted 2 hours. When it finally passed, 11 participants remained. Han Sol emerged from his shelter. His body was cold but functional. He had survived the ice. Thexar was waiting. The War Master looked at the human and the Vryn warrior who emerged from the same shelter. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he spoke. You continue to defy my expectations, human Han Sol. The next trial begins in 15 minutes. It is the sensory void. There you will have nothing but your own mind. We shall see if your stubbornness extends to isolation. Han Sol nodded. He was beginning to understand something. These trials were not just testing physical endurance. They were testing psychological resilience. And humans had something special there too. The ability to be alone with their thoughts without breaking. As he walked toward the next trial, Jiwoo spoke in his ear. You are past the halfway point. 12 hours down, 12 to go. How are you holding up? Tired, he admitted, but still here. Still standing. That is the human way, Jiwoo said. He could hear the pride in her voice. The entrance to the sensory void opened. It looked like a simple chamber. Small, dark, empty. But Han Sol knew what waited inside. Nothing. and nothing could be the hardest thing to face. He stepped inside. The door sealed behind him, and the silence began. The message arrived on a cold morning at the outpost on Kepler 442b. Commander Han Sol was drinking his coffee when the communication system beeped 3 times. That meant priority message. That meant something important. He put down his cup and walked to the console. The screen showed a symbol he recognized. It was the mark of the Vrin Empire. His eyebrows went up. The Vrin never contacted humans. They thought humans were too weak to bother with. Han Sol pressed the button to open the message. A face appeared on the screen. It was not a human face. The being had skin like crystal, sharp and reflective. Its eyes were dark and deep. This was Thexar, the War Master of the Vrin, Commander Han Sol of Earth, the Vrin said. His voice sounded like rocks grinding together. The Vrin Empire extends an invitation to your species. We are hosting the Crucible of Resilience. It is a test of endurance, a test of strength, a test of will. Han Sol listened carefully. He knew about the Crucible. Everyone in the Coalition knew about it. It was famous. It was also famous for breaking people. Strong warriors from powerful species tried it and failed. Most quit within a few hours. The test lasts 24 hours, Thexar continued. No one has completed it in over 100 years. We are curious to see how humans perform. If you accept, you will represent your species before the entire Galactic Coalition. The screen went dark. The message was over. Han Sol stood there for a moment thinking. This was not really an invitation. This was a challenge. The Vrin wanted to prove that humans were weak. They wanted to embarrass humanity in front of everyone. He should say no. That would be the smart thing. Why volunteer for public failure? But something in his chest burned at the thought. Something stubborn. Something very human. The door behind him opened. Dr. Jiwoo walked in carrying a data pad. She was the medical officer and xenobiologist at the station. She was also one of the smartest people Han Sol knew. You got the message too? She asked. Yes, Han Sol said. Are you going to do it? He turned to look at her. Her face was serious, but her eyes were bright. She was interested. As a scientist, she was always interested in challenges. I think I have to, Han Sol said. If I say no, they will say humans are cowards. If I try and fail, they will say humans are weak. But if I do not try at all, I will always wonder. Jiwoo nodded slowly. She understood. She came from a family of scientists. They always said the same thing. You have to try. You have to test. You have to push forward even when you are scared. Then I am coming with you, she said. Jiwoo, you do not have to. Every participant is allowed one support person, she interrupted. Medical and technical support. I looked it up already. I am coming, Han Sol smiled. It was a tired smile, but a real one. Having Jiwoo there would help. Not just because she was a doctor, but because she was a friend. 3 days later, they arrived at Vrin Prime. The planet was harsh and beautiful. Mountains of black rock reached up to a red sky. Rivers of lava glowed in the distance. This was a world that did not welcome soft things. Their ship landed at the ceremonial grounds. When they stepped out, the heat hit them like a wall. The air was thick and smelled of sulfur. The environmental suit adjusted automatically, cooling his skin. The arena was carved into the side of a volcano. Thousands of seats rose up in circles. Most were empty, but there were enough spectators to matter. Beings from a dozen different species watched as the participants gathered on the floor of the arena. Han Sol counted 53 other participants. They were all bigger than him, stronger looking. Some had natural armor on their bodies. Some had multiple arms or legs. One being was nearly 3 meters tall with skin like metal. He saw the looks they gave him: confusion, amusement, pity. To them, he looked like a child who had wandered into a training ground for warriors. A being approached them. She moved on 6 legs and had a face like a praying mantis. This was Ambassador Vexus from the Krelian cluster. She was one of the few coalition members who had been kind to humans. Commander Han Sol, Vexus said in her clicking voice. I am surprised to see you here. Pleasantly surprised. But I must warn you, this test is designed to break even the strongest beings. Your people are new to the stars. Perhaps it is too soon for this, maybe, Han Sol said. But humans have been testing ourselves since we learned to walk. We might surprise you. The ambassador's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a smile. She moved away. Thexar appeared at the center of the arena. He was even more impressive in person. 8 feet tall with crystalline plates covering his body. When he moved, light reflected off him in sharp angles. "Warriors!" His voice boomed across the arena. "Welcome to the crucible of resilience. For 3,000 years, this test has separated the worthy from the weak. Today 54 beings stand before me. I predict fewer than 5 will see the end." He explained the rules. 24 hours. 6 different environments. 4 hours in each environment. No rest between them. No advanced equipment. No enhancement drugs. Anyone could quit at any time by pressing their emergency beacon. "The test begins at dawn," Thexar said. "Prepare yourselves. Pray to whatever gods you believe in. Most of you will fail. That is not a disappointment. That is simply reality." That night, Han Sol could not sleep. He lay in his assigned quarters thinking about what was coming. He thought about all the training he had done in his life. Military service, survival courses, endurance competitions. Would any of it be enough? Jiwoo knocked on his door. She came in carrying 2 cups of tea. "Cannot sleep either?" she asked. "No," he admitted. They sat together in silence for a while, drinking the tea. Finally, Jiwoo spoke. "I have been studying the other species," she said. "Their biology, their strengths. Do you know what I found?" "What?" "Every single one of them is specialized. The Vrin are built for strength, the Krelians for speed, the Selkarians for water environments. Each species evolved to be the best at one thing. And humans?" Han Sol asked. Jiwoo smiled. It was a strange smile, sad and proud at the same time. "Humans are not the best at anything," she said. "We are just good enough at everything. We are the generalists, the adapters, the ones who survive by figuring things out." Han Sol thought about this. It was true. Humans had no claws, no armor, no venom, no natural weapons. They were not the fastest or strongest, but they had survived ice ages and droughts and plagues. They had spread across an entire planet with just their brains and their stubbornness. "Maybe that is enough," he said quietly. "Maybe that is everything," Jiwoo replied. When dawn came, Han Sol stood with the other participants at the entrance to the first trial. The red sun of Vrin Prime rose over the mountains. The heat was already building. Thexar raised one crystalline arm. A horn sounded. The doors opened. The crucible had begun. The doors opened into a world of fire. Heat rolled over the participants like an ocean wave. Han Sol stepped forward onto sand that shimmered with temperature. The ground burned even through his protective boots. This was the Furnace Flats, a desert that stretched to the horizon in every direction. The sun hung overhead like an angry eye. The temperature was already climbing past 80 degrees Celsius. Each participant received a 30-kilogram weight pack and a small water ration. The instructions were simple. Cross 40 kilometers of desert. Reach the far outpost. Do it in 4 hours. Around him, the other participants prepared in different ways. The Vrin warriors simply started walking, their crystal bodies reflecting the heat away. The Kar-Elians chittered to each other, organizing into efficient groups. The large metal-skinned being picked up his weight pack like it was nothing. Han Sol looked down at his own pack. It was heavy. It would get heavier, but he had done this before. Different planet, same principle. The desert does not care how strong you are. It only cares how smart you are. Jiwoo's voice crackled in his ear through the communication link. "I am monitoring your vital signs. Your heart rate is elevated but stable. Remember to pace yourself." "I will," Han Sol replied quietly. The horn sounded. The trial began. Most participants started running. They wanted to finish fast to escape the heat quickly. Han Sol watched them go. He understood the impulse. But he also understood something they did not. He opened his water ration and poured half of it over his shirt and pants. The liquid soaked into the fabric. Around him, other participants stared in confusion. Was the human wasting his water already? But as Han Sol started walking at a steady pace, the water began to evaporate. As it evaporated, it cooled his skin. This was evaporative cooling. This was how humans survived in hot environments. Their bodies were designed for it. The first hour passed. 10 participants had already activated their emergency beacons. The heat was too much. Their bodies could not regulate temperature effectively. Han Sol kept his steady pace, one foot in front of the other. "Breathe, keep moving." Jiwoo spoke again in his ear. "Your core temperature is lower than most participants. The evaporative cooling is working, but you need to hydrate soon." At the 2-hour mark, Hansol allowed himself small sips of his remaining water. Not too much. Not too fast. Just enough to keep going. Around him, the desert seemed endless. The sand reflected light until everything was white and burning. He saw a shape ahead. Someone had fallen. As he got closer, he recognized the being. It was a Draxian, a species that looked like a cross between a rhinoceros and a tank. The warrior was lying on the ground, breathing hard. His thick armored skin was designed for combat, not for cooling. He was overheating. Hansol stopped. He knelt beside the Draxian. "Do not stop," a voice called out. It was one of the Vryn warriors passing by. "This is individual trial. You waste time." The Draxian looked up at Hansol with fading eyes. "Go, human. Save yourself." Hansol did not go. Instead, he opened his nearly empty water bottle and poured a few drops onto the Draxian's head. He showed the warrior how to wet his skin to cool down. He helped the large being stand up. "You should not help me," the Draxian said. "We are competitors. We are also both alive," Hansol replied. "Let us keep it that way." They walked together for a while. The Draxian was slow, but he was moving. Eventually, medical drones came and extracted him to safety. His emergency beacon had activated automatically when his temperature reached critical levels. Hansol continued alone. His legs ached. His throat was dry. But his mind was clear. He had learned long ago that endurance was not about the body alone. It was about the brain telling the body to keep going when everything hurt. At hour 3, he passed several participants who had started strong but were now stumbling. Their sprint strategy had failed. They had exhausted themselves early. Hansol's steady pace put him ahead of them now. Jiwoo's voice was proud in his ear. "You are in the top 15. Many did not expect you to finish this trial at all." "I am full of surprises," Hansol said. His voice was rough, but he tried to keep it light. The final hour was the hardest. The sun seemed to get hotter. The sand seemed to get heavier. The weight pack dug into his shoulders. But Hansol had been in pain before. Pain was just information. It told you something was hard. It did not tell you to stop. He thought about Earth. He thought about his ancestors who had walked across Africa in similar heat. They had no protective suits. They had no support teams. They just had determination and sweat and the refusal to die. That same blood ran in his veins. When Hansol crossed the finish line, he was 30th out of the original 54 participants. 24 had quit, but he had finished. His time was not the best, but it was respectable. More importantly, he felt okay. Tired, yes. Sore, yes. But not broken. Not even close to broken. Thexar was waiting at the outpost. The War Master looked at Hansol with something that might have been surprise. "You helped the Draxian," Thexar said. It was not a question. "Yes, that was foolish. You could have placed higher." Hansol took a long drink from the water station. He looked at the towering crystalline warrior. "Maybe, but I would not have felt higher." Thexar made a sound that might have been laughter or might have been contempt. It was hard to tell. "Your species is strange, human. You value peculiar things." Jiwoo met Hansol at the recovery area. She scanned his vitals with her medical equipment. Everything looked good. Better than good, actually. His stress hormones were elevated, but not dangerously so. His cardiovascular system was handling the challenge well. "How do you feel?" she asked. "Like I want a bath and a bed," Hansol admitted, "but I can keep going." "Good. Because you only have 15 minutes before the next trial starts." He laughed. It was a tired laugh. "What is next?" "Water," Jiwoo said. "Lots of water." The participants gathered at a new location. This time the doors led to a massive pressurized chamber. Through thick windows, Hansol could see dark water. This was the abyssal depths trial. The chamber would simulate diving to incredible depths, 3,000 meters below sea level. The pressure would be crushing. The cold would be numbing. And they would need to solve mechanical puzzles to escape. Hansol had trained for underwater operations in his military service, but never at these depths, never in total darkness, never for 4 hours straight. As he suited up in the diving gear, he noticed his hands were shaking slightly. Not from fear exactly, from adrenaline, from the knowledge that this was going to be very difficult. Jiwoo touched his shoulder. "Remember your training. Remember that your body knows what to do in water. Humans have the mammalian dive reflex. Your heart will slow. Your body will adapt," he nodded. He knew the science. When humans went underwater, especially in cold water, their physiology changed. It was an ancient adaptation. It helped conserve oxygen. The horn sounded. The participants entered the chamber. Water flooded in around them. Cold shocked through Han Solo's suit. The pressure began to increase. Down they went into the dark. And Han Solo went with them, into the crushing depths, trusting in millions of years of evolution to see him through.